Hello, and welcome to something a little bit different. So, this week's Unit of the Week would be number 312, meaning that we've been doing Unit of the Week for 6 years now, which is a lot of Unit of the Week. So it's getting to the point where you could almost watch a Unit of the Week every single day of the year. Come back to me in 54, 55 days or so. But I do want to say thank you very much for everyone who's been watching this. I mean, this has pretty much been a very standard program of this channel for, well, 6 years now. And I enjoy making them, and to do something a little bit different for this week's Unit of the Week, instead of doing like a funny unit or something like a unit, I thought it'd be interesting to showcase how this is actually made, because this is a weekly program that I do have to make and work on every single week, and I've got a whole process out on how this is done, and I'd like to include you guys in how Unit of the Week is made. So, with all that rambling out the way, let's get into it. But the first thing to do is to actually find the Unit of the Week to cover. There's a lot of units in Steel Division 2, as you can clearly see, and the Armory is a pretty nice way to try to find interesting units. I usually try to make it so I do an Axis unit and an Allied unit and switch between them every single week, and I try to keep things spread out and, try not to do 5 tank units, side by side. This week's unit is going to be an Axis unit, and I've already figured out what I'm going to pick, and it will be, well, you should already probably know by the title, the Panther G. The last time I've covered Panther was the Panther D, but that was Unit of the Week number 202, which is 110 Units of the Weeks ago. So I think it's safe to say we can talk about the Panther again. So what I'd usually do in the Armory is, get some pictures and shots for the thumbnail and for the video, look at the stats, and I'd also try and pull any other interesting stats from other units. What is really nice that they've added in the Armory is actually this division thing here, as beforehand if I picked a unit, I would usually have to go through the battle group of pretty much any division that I think may have the unit, so I could include it in the list of units when I talk about which divisions this unit is available to. So I'm going to go and get that footage now. So the next part is to actually get some gameplay footage when we actually talk about how the unit is used in game. I don't actually use footage from actual games, it'd be a pain in the arse to actually find interesting and stimulating footage of certain units being used, especially more niche units, so instead I do a single player skirmish. I usually go on the map Illimancy right now, as it just looks the best. It also has a pretty good choke points, and I'm not looking for, actual, proper engagements. I just want footage of the unit shooting a bunch of stuff and explosions happening around it to make it visually stimulating. And for that, I usually make a very specialized battle group where I take the unit and just take as many as I can in A phase. Pretty simple stuff. The actual gameplay portion is pretty simple. I buy as many units as I can, select them. I usually use the smart orders, but I can also do an attack move. In this case, we're going to use a siege order, and I'm going to try and get them to fight over here. As you see, we have AI friendlies are going to be helping out. They really just form the background fodder for this battle. I turn it to high time speed, and I usually just, let the battle go on. Hopefully my units survive more than a few minutes, so I can get more than just a few minutes of footage, as I do like trying to get different angles and approaches. But once again, we're really just trying to see a bunch of Panthers blow up a bunch of tanks. Unfortunately, these are heavy tanks, so they should be able to blow up a bunch of tanks. But yeah, we're just gonna leave this running, and hopefully I don't get killed by Cobras. So with the battle over, it's now time to open it in a replay format, and here's where you actually get the battle footage and do the recording for it. Now for this, I do use an Xbox controller. You can really use any controller for the matter, and it's a very good way for getting some pretty cool cinematic shots. As once we hide the HUD, we can move the camera down, hide the mouse to the bottom of the screen, and as you can see, you can get some very nice smooth camera angles, and it's a real benefit compared to just using, as you can see right now, a WSAD, which is pretty janky with how that works. But yeah, we just try to get some really nice and cool footage of the battle. If you're a Steel Division 2 content creator, I would highly recommend using a controller. Even just for casting replays, is you can do the cool thing of just using your mouse, but using the Xbox controllers we see to actually just move around the camera, and it's a little bit more smooth as well. Also, you may notice that compared to other regular gameplay footage, the game looks a little bit brighter. The reason being is that I use a reshader in Steel Division 2. You see, this is how the game looks normally. It's a really desaturated game, as you can tell. I think it looks horrible. I understand that they're trying to make an Eastern Front game, and Eastern Front wasn't all sunshine and roses, of course, but, you know, the road wasn't black and white. It was a little bit more colourful than that, so I pretty much use this all the time now, as I think it makes the game look much better, and for the footage, it makes it look a little bit brighter rather than just, you know, this horrible grey overtone. But yeah, I'm going to get the rest of the footage of this and we'll meet back later. So now we're actually done with Steel Division 2, we don't have to open it anymore. The rest of the video making process is really just editing some pictures and throwing it all together in Sony Vegas and doing the audio. So in this case, this is the thumbnail for the video. We just use a blank armory shot of the Panther G. We put my thumbnail in the top left corner, as I like to keep all my videos standardized with their thumbnail now. And for the actual font, I use Impact at a pretty large size. I just found 144 to work pretty well. And it's pretty simple. We just type in Unit of the Week. We do this on the right hand side, and then Panther G. Very simple. And the last thing we do is that we outline the text so it's a little bit more clear on the background. And then that's pretty much it. We just save it. And I do keep a folder of pretty much every single Unit of the Week thumbnail that I've done. As you can see, there's an awful lot, but it's also pretty good because it helps me keep track of the actual numbers. And here are the very old Unit of the Week icon drits. Aren't particularly great, and I got some other thumbnails in here from some other videos where I was too lazy to put them in a different folder. So, there we go. So the next thing to do is to create the actual customized artwork. I used the rather advanced tool of Microsoft Paint to create my little vignette. And, well, it's a pretty personal process. I don't like to include people in the actual making of it, but I will show you the end result. So this is pretty much the finished result. The last thing you need to do is just put my signature at the bottom right to stop anyone from stealing my artwork. And, yeah, we just save it. And just like with the thumbnails, I also have a folder with all of the Unit of the Week artwork that I have ever done. It will probably be worth a lot of money after I die. So the next thing to do is to record the audio for the video. For all my recording needs, I do use Bandicam, and the reason being is I've just been using it for years, and I really like the interface, and it does what I need to do. I've also actually paid for this software, and same with Sony Vegas, which is my video editing software. I understand some people use OBS, and that is free, and I also would recommend OBS if you are looking to make videos in general, but I just like Bandicam, and that's what I use. So for the actual audio section, I do have a script, and as you can see, it's completely empty, because I lied, I actually don't have a script. As you may tell if you've seen previous Unit of the Weeks, they're very rambly. And I think that's also a pro and a con. One reason I like it is it saves me time personally, because I don't have to write a proper script and edit it, because frankly I really hate writing. I much more get my thoughts across in audio, like we're doing right now. But it does lead to, you know, me talking in circles and sometimes losing my train of thought and little audio slip-ups, as you're hearing right now. And for something that I do need to do every single week, time is a little bit of the essence, as I do actually have other things I need to get done in my life, so I just ramble on. I don't know where to really go from here, so I'm just going to go and record the audio. The funny thing of the audio, it does take me quite a few takes in certain sections, and there's usually a lot of bloopers which I delete, and they're usually very sweary. The regular EP cells do quite a bit of damage with, well, an infallible tank. Now, of course, the Panther G is a pretty big, bloody, not mess about, especially at longer ranges, as it has pretty good bullet drop-off. So I got most of the audio recorded already about the statistics, the introduction, talking about how it's used in-game, but the last piece I need to do, and I purposely leave till last, is the actual historical context of the unit in question. Now, with my historical context part, the whole idea is that I'm just trying to give a brief 1 minute, 2 minute explanation of, you know, the actual unit in its historical context and why it was used, how it was used, and just some interesting tidbit facts. But the thing is, I'm not a real military historian. I'm just an enthusiast, and I'm also just trying to get a very basic understanding of the unit. So I do very basic research, frankly. I go on Wikipedia, I try to look on some blogs and other websites, and Tank Encyclopedia can also be pretty useful. I understand that all these sources aren't 100% accurate, and I do make mistakes when I do my historical context, but I trust you guys to take it into consideration when you listen to them and not take my word as gospel, because I'm just an enthusiast. I do try to get the facts right for the most part, but if I do get anything wrong, you guys are always more than welcome to correct me in the comments. I am completely fine with that, especially with some of the more obscure stuff, because some of those weird minor Axis nations with their weird one-off anti-tank guns, it can be very hard to find information for that. But for something as ubiquitous as the Panther tank, it's fairly easy to find a lot of information for it. I don't have a script for this part as well when I record the historical context. I usually have some bullet points in my head which I try to hit and talk about. But yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of reading and record the historical part, if I can actually say historical correctly. We pretty much got all the footage I need to actually go and put everything together on Sony Vegas and call it a day. So, yes, I do use Sony Vegas. I find it to be a pretty nice tool. I also got it for like 25 bucks in a Humble Bundle, so I got a very good deal on it. And it pretty much does very good basic video editing. I'm not doing anything fancy here. I'm just putting together a bunch of clips. The first thing to do is I really get the audio together and set up the basis of the video. As you can see, this one is round about almost 7 minutes long. The top track here is my voice audio, as I record everything in sections. This is the introduction, this is the historical context. These parts here are me talking about the unit stats, and these two final parts is going to be the gameplay footage of talking about the battle usage of the Panther G. The bottom tracks here are the soundtrack. The soundtracks I use for Unit of the Week, and I've always been using the War Game soundtracks. This one is Campaign Brief, this one is Tension, and these are the two that I mainly use for the most part. I usually don't have to fit a third audio track, but because of the length of this video, I'm going to have to. So this audio track here is called Preparation, and all three of these are from Wargame Airland Battle. So for the video editing, the first part I usually work on is actually the middle part of the video where I talk about the unit statistics, as it's really breaking down into, well, two major parts. The first one being the introduction, where we talk about the price of a unit and what divisions it's available to, and I have the division icons pop up as I say the division names. I have a whole folder just filled with every single division icon, but with a clear background, so it looks a little bit nicer. For the Russian divisions, it's much easier making clear backgrounds because they're just rectangles, as it's a bloody flag. And then we get to the actual parts where we zoom in on different weapon stats here. For this case, because this has multiple shell types, I usually try to include the other shell types separately, so it's a little bit more clearer. I mean, I'll admit the editing isn't the cleanest in the world, but it gets the point across regardless. And then finally, you know, zooms down to the miscellaneous stats. I then splice together the actual gameplay footage, and then if I talk about any units in particular, I like to have it on the screen, showing up on the side, just to give you an idea of the stats that we're talking about here. For this, we're really just comparing the Panther G to the Panther A, and then we're comparing the IS-2 to the Panther G, and talking about the dynamics between IS-2 and Panther G fights. So the last thing we need to do is to get images for the historical context part, and well, Google Images is our friend. It's pretty simple. You just type in unit name Aggression, World War II, and Bob's your uncle, you get a bunch of pictures. I try to stick with using historical pictures of the time period, as they're usually a bit more interesting, as you get to see the people who use them and the places where they're used, and you get to see all the ones that are blown up, which is always very fun. There are also other pictures, such as model pictures and museum pictures, that I could use, and they are coloured, which is nice, but they're usually a little bit more boring, as it's just the tank in a parking lot most of the time. For stuff such as Western Front and German units, it's pretty easy to find historical pictures for them. But for minor Axis nations, with like obscure equipment, and especially for Soviet stuff, it can be a huge pain in the ass, as there's not a lot of like historical picture documentation for some of the stuff, surprisingly. So that's pretty much the video ready to go. We got the historical context part done, we got the statistical part done, and then we got the battle/tactics part done. And that's pretty much how every unit of the Reek has been structured since I've started doing Unit of the Reek around about 6 years ago. And yeah, the video's ready to go. It's ready to be rendered and then uploaded. Overall, this entire process takes me round about 2 hours to do, which honestly I don't think is a lot of time. I like to keep it kind of short and sweet because I do have other things I need to do in my life. And this is something I do have to make every single week. I'm gonna do everything in my power to never miss a week of doing Unit of the Week, because I understand this is this, regular schedule programming, and it's nice to keep up that consistency. Especially now that I've been doing it for 6 years, I've gotten it down really to a process and how to make these videos, and it isn't all that stressful or time consuming for me to do, and that's good because they have to be made every single week. So yeah, I'm going to render the video, upload it, and then I'm going to edit the, well, I guess, director's commentary of what this is, and then upload, yeah. I usually make these videos a week or 2 weeks before I actually upload them, which makes things a little bit interesting. The reason I do that is to have a buffer, so if I do miss a week for whatever reason, I have, like, a week that I can catch up on to make sure to get the Unit of the Week done. But I do have to be careful, because if I think there's a patch that's going to be coming up, I try to pick a unit I think won't be patched. And that's usually sometimes a gamble, because sometimes I'll do a Unit of the Week and then it's been changed majorly in an update, and then I have to redo the entire bloody thing. Which isn't all that fun, of course. But, yeah, I'm going to stop talking and get this done and uploaded. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope it has been somewhat interesting to see how these videos are made and showing you behind the scenes and how a content creator creates content. And yeah, thank you, and hope you guys enjoyed the video. And as usual, please just take it easy.